This is a trailer for a movie called Cry Freedom, and the man that you see right there is Denzel Washington. And a lot of people might not know how old Denzel Washington actually is. This was back in 1987. Denzel's been around for a while. But Denzel Washington is portraying a civil rights leader in apartheid South Africa named Steve Biko. Now you might say, well, okay, what does Steve Biko have to do with Nelson Mandela and the Mandela effect? Aside from them both being civil rights leaders, anti-apartheid civil rights leaders, I was washing dishes the other day. I think I was washing dishes. I might have been, knowing me, probably cooking something late at night. But I was thinking about high school, and I remember watching Cry Freedom. I don't know why that came to mind, but something clicked and said, hey, when exactly did Stephen Biko die? And I went, did some research, and Stephen Biko died in 1977 in prison. The heavy part of this, aside from him obviously just being a civil rights leader who went to jail fighting against apartheid, he died from being beaten by police officers. But I don't believe he was well known as Nelson Mandela. In fact, I had never heard of Stephen Biko until I saw that movie back in high school. But I had heard of Nelson Mandela. In fact, Nelson Mandela was actually well known. People knew him. I do believe that Stephen Biko's death and people's misremembering of his death, with him being the lesser known anti-apartheid civil rights leader, I think people just got them mixed up. What makes me believe this is the fact that the Mandela effect is based on the idea that Mandela died in prison around the 80s, and 1977 would indeed be around the 80s. It's not the 80s, but it is around the 80s. And someone talking about that in 2000 something, yeah, 1977 would be around the 80s. When I think about some of the cartoons and shows and things that I've watched, I say, well, that was back in the 80s. But it turns out a lot of that stuff was actually back in the 70s. We talked about Stop That Pigeon not too long ago, Penelope Pit Stop. All that stuff was back in the 70s. It was not in the 80s. But when I think about it, it's like, well, that was back in the 80s. The reason I'm doing this video today is because I was on the Mandela Effect subreddit, and about 4 days ago, somebody brought up that a while ago there was a Mandela tribute concert. And maybe people saw that and thought that, oh, he had died, and that's what the concert was for. That concert was back in the 80s. It was in 1988, and it was celebrating his 70th birthday. And make no mistake, this was not a small event. This thing was huge. You can find the whole concert here on YouTube. It's here. And so this was a big deal. This was worldwide. This thing was big. And yes, if you look down at the right-hand corner of your screen, this is a 10-hour video. So it was that big. But what I also discovered was that I wasn't the only one with the Stephen Biko theory. And the movie Cry Freedom was brought up. And I guess that's where a lot of people actually learned about Stephen Biko. In fact, someone even said, yeah, I remember when this movie was heavily advertised, even to the point of showing to kids in school, which is where I saw it. So for those that watch this channel for the Mandela Effect stuff, this is the theory that I co-sign on, which is the Stephen Biko theory, that people conflate Stephen Biko's death in prison with Nelson Mandela being in prison. And at this point, Nelson Mandela had been in prison since the 60s. As for the concert theory, this thing was so big, I don't think people watched it without knowing what it was for. Then again, you're not. A lot of people don't always pay attention to everything that goes on. The reason that I specifically think that it was Stephen Biko, because the theory is very specific that people believe Mandela died in prison around the 80s, and that would be Stephen Biko. That's the thing that does it for me. But there's no particular reason why it can't be some mix of the two, if you lean more into the Occam's razor thought process about this. But it's crazy how this thing opened up such a wormhole, because there are things that are misremembered, such as the Ed McMahon and Publishers Clearinghouse thing. The reason I know that's not a Mandela effect or not a real Mandela effect is because the minute I brought it up with my mom, she went, no, Ed McMahon was part of American Family. Because she used to do the American Family thing. And then when American Family went out of business, she switched over to Publishers Clearinghouse. Publishers Clearinghouse had the Prize Patrol up until recently when they had Steve Harvey. And he is now the Prize Patrol guy. You see it on the van right there. And it does show you that this stuff can get mixed up in your head. That being said, there are some things that I know used to be a certain way and now there's something else. And there's 3 that are personal to me because I noticed them when they happened. I remember when I was a kid, my dad dropped my mom off at work and then he was going to take me to school. And when she gets out, she got out the car, I got into the front seat, and one day, I'm just looking at the window, looking at the mirror, and it says, objects in mirror may be closer than they appear. And I thought I'm like, that's an odd statement. The maybe closer than they appear. I was like, this, either they are or they're not. The thing about this is I didn't even know this was a Mandela effect. Nowadays, mirrors say objects are closer than they appear. That's fine. The thing about it is people are saying that they never said maybe closer than they appear. And there's way too many people, including myself, that know that they did at some point say it because I observed it and I locked it in the memory. It's like either it is or it's not. The next thing, Jiffy peanut butter. There's enough people who know that there was a Jiffy peanut butter. There's people that know that. And I remember the first time they said, choosy mothers choose Jif. And I looked and said, they changed the name. They shortened the name. And again, seems like it was around the time when that was kind of like the hip thing to do, to have kind of a shorter, hipper name. And I was like, okay, they're getting hip with things. And the third one, the lion and the lamb thing. I used to be super religious. So if you threw any kind of like Bible thing out there, you would pique my interest. I might not pay complete attention, but you would definitely pique my interest. The only reason this is even a thing to me is I remember this obscure commercial where it played during the Olympics. These are like the Olympics during the late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere in there. It was the Olympics, and they played this obscure commercial, and the commercial ended with the lion laying down with the lamb and all these animals kind of living in peace. And I remember there was some kind of weird controversy about it. And I remember going, well, that's from the Bible. And I remember it was like the controversy was they were taking it out of context or something like that. But I do remember that. And now that's not in the Bible. It's the lion and the wolf. So what people are saying is happening here is that people are getting Isaiah 11:6 confused with Revelation 5:5-6. And I can rock with that if we're going to continue down the Occam's razor path, simply because I know for a fact that people do mix up Bible scriptures, and it happens a lot. And I'm not personally familiar enough with that particular scripture to know whether it changed or not. I only know it was quoted as the lion and the lamb. But if you do want to know more about Steve Biko, there's a lot of stuff right here on YouTube. You can check that out. The movie is not on here. I'm surprised by that. The trailers are on here, and there's actually some clips of him on here as well. So Other than that, you guys take it easy. Nathan Brendan Masters. Hasta.
Don't look back, we're here to stay. A life we knew would come one day. And this is it, the borderline to where the future leaves us behind. The fire will burn.